Have you ever wondered why the same amount of money buys less over time? It's an unsettling reality we all face, but what's the underlying culprit? Enter inflation. It's a term you've likely heard but may not fully understand. Inflation, in its simplest form, is the general increase in prices and the subsequent fall in the purchasing value of money. Imagine a loaf of bread that cost you £1 10 years ago now costs £2. That's inflation at work. But how do we measure inflation? We use a basket of common goods and services, everything from your morning coffee to your monthly rent. We then compare the cost of this basket over time. And it's not a one-size-fits-all phenomenon. There are different types of inflation, like demand pull and cost push inflation, each with its own unique triggers and effects. So, inflation slowly but surely erodes the value of money. But what's the real impact on our purchasing power? Imagine having a fixed amount of money. As prices rise due to inflation, that money can buy less and less. This is what we call the erosion of purchasing power. To delve deeper into this, let's take a moment to understand what purchasing power is. Picture it as the muscle behind your money, the strength that determines how much of a product or service you can acquire with a single unit of your currency. It's the real, tangible value of your hard-earned cash in your everyday life. Now, let's see how inflation flexes its muscle and engages in this tug-of-war with purchasing power. Inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is rising. As inflation increases, every pound, dollar, or euro you own buys a smaller percentage of a good or a service. Over time, if the inflation rate is high enough, it can cause the purchasing power of your money to decline. Imagine this. 20 years ago, you could have bought a loaf of bread for less than $1. 10 years later, that same loaf cost $1.50. Today, it's pushing $2. That's inflation at work. It's the same loaf of bread, but you have to fork over more money to get it. And it's not just bread, it's your morning coffee, your weekly grocery shop, your annual vacation. The cost of living goes up, and if your income doesn't keep pace, your purchasing power goes down. Now, think about a gallon of milk. A few decades ago, you could buy it for less than $1. Today, it costs around $3. Yes, it's the same milk, but your money can't stretch as far as it used to. This is the impact of inflation on purchasing power, and it's happening all the time right under our noses. So, as inflation rises, purchasing power declines. It's a silent thief, robbing us of our hard-earned money's worth. Inflation may seem like a small nuisance, but over time, its impact can be substantial. Picture this. The cost of a loaf of bread in the 70s was less than a quarter of what it is today. This isn't because bread has become more valuable or harder to produce, but because the purchasing power of our money has diminished due to inflation. Over the long term, even a seemingly small rate of inflation can significantly erode your purchasing power. This happens because of the compounding effect. Imagine a snowball rolling down a hill, gathering more and more snow as it descends. That's the power of compounding. Now replace the snowball with inflation and the hill with time, and you can see how a small rate of inflation can have a large impact over the years. Inflation is an inevitable part of our economy, but understanding it can help us better navigate its impacts. So, what have we learned about inflation and its impact on purchasing power? Well, we've cracked open the enigma of inflation, understanding it as a common economic phenomenon where the general level of prices for goods and services is on the rise. While it's an integral part of the economy, it's also a bit of a tug-of-war. As prices rise, the value of money falls, meaning our hard-earned cash doesn't stretch as far as it once did. This is where the long-term impact comes into play. Over time, inflation chips away at the purchasing power of money, making everything from your morning coffee to your dream home more expensive. But it's not all doom and gloom. Understanding inflation can arm us with the knowledge to make informed financial decisions. Whether it's saving, investing, or planning for retirement, having this insight helps us navigate the economic seas with a bit more confidence. Remember, knowledge is power. When it comes to your money, don't let inflation catch you off guard.